This video offers the only real solution for the people who are awake to the Illuminati, the global elite, the usury thieving, global Rothschild banking system who created the Federal Reserve on the human sacrifice altar of Jehkyll Island, the oil-controlling, war-funding, war-mongering, poppy field farming, multinational, corporate, moloch-worshipping bilderbergers who had meetings at Bohemian Grove doing the cremation of care, the skull and bones, trilateral commission, Rockefeller, stock market manipulating, recession and depression causing, hyperinflating, nation destabilising, spirit cooking, blood oath making, occoult city creating, human trafficking, baby aborting, population starving, crop seed manipulating, pharmacopea pushing, body part selling, MK Ultra media twisting, satanic brainwashing, lesbian power raping, propagandizing, porn creating, gay mafia, transvestite gender confusing, Baphomet pushing, demon summonsing, social degenerating, third wave feminist biology denying, race baiting, God hating, technocrat internet censoring, virtue signaling, social media dopamine pushing, suicide causing, pedophilic, adrenalized blood drinking, Hollywood music and movie industry owning, altar of Pergamon and gate of Ishtar digging, Tower of Babel building, Jesuit Pope, European Union, Roman Empire rebuilding, immigration forcing, British royal ruling, Dracula related false bloodline, multi-generation inbreeding, aboriginal killing, slave trading, heroin dealing, House of Sayud, Arab orb, jinn sorcering, ISIS creating, Syria destroying, United Nations, Lucius Trust, Bolshevistic Agenda 2030, population controlling, communist Babylonian Baal worshipping beast system. For it is said that in the eyes of God, if a man exercises his anger and wrath against the bloodthirsty tyrants who are like ferocious beasts, it is very praiseworthy. So listen to what's presented in this video and pray to God for his guidance. Okay, we're going to read an excerpt from The Promised Day Has Come. This is written by Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the cause of God. It was written in March 1941, according to Wikipedia here. I'm reading from the 1980 revised edition. The three false gods. This excerpt gives us a way to look at the world and understand what's going on, and a framework so that we can find the solution to some of the world's problems. This vital force is dying out. This mighty agency has been scorned. This radiant light obscured. This impregnable stronghold abandoned. This beauteous robe discarded. God himself has indeed been dethroned from the hearts of men, and an idolatrous world passionately and clamorously hails and worships the false gods, which its own idle fancies have fatuously created, and its misguided hands so impiously exalted. The chief idols in the desecrated temple of mankind are none other than the triple gods of nationalism, racialism, and communism. So I'll stop here. These three things are the false gods which all mankind is turning to when we're not turning towards the kingdom of God. So this is what this whole quote is about, these three things here. Before that, he's talking about the vital force that's dying out is godliness. So he leads in off the page which was before this. At the end here, the face of the world, behold our laments hath altered the way of God, and the religion of God have ceased to be of any worth in the eyes of men. So that's the paragraph that leads into this, talking about that the faith of God is dying out in the world, and we're now Everything we do serves one of these three gods. So this is what this is going to be all about: nationalism, racialism, and communism. Remember those three things. We're going to talk about them a lot. So, at whose altars governments and peoples, whether democratic or totalitarian, at peace or at war, of the East or of the West, Christian or Islamic, are in various forms and in different degrees now worshipping. Their high priests are the politicians and the worldly wise, the so-called sages of the age. Their sacrifice, the flesh and blood of the slaughtered multitudes. So that's a heavy statement right there. These three idol gods, nationalism, racialism, and communism, people are being massacred in their name, this blood of the slaughtered multitudes. The high priests, right here it says, the politicians and the worldly wise. It says it right there, the politicians and the worldly wise. These are the high priests who are sacrificing humans for their cause. It's human sacrifice. We may see it differently to how we visualize it, someone getting put on an altar, but essentially it's exactly the same thing. So this is happening in the name of Christianity, it's happening in the name of Islam, it's happening in the name of nationalism, racialism, and communism. So regardless of which of these things we think we're following, Christianity, Islam, East or West, democratic or totalitarian, we're serving these three gods. And at the highest level, the high priests of these three gods are the politicians and the worldly wise. They're killing, that's why everybody's dying on the battlefields, right? For these idol gods, this trinity of evil, as I like to call it. Their incantations are outworn shibboleths and insidious and irreverent formulas. Their incense, the smoke of anguish that ascends from the lacerated hearts of the bereaved, maimed, and the homeless. Yeah, great. So these powers of the world, let's look at them a little bit and talk about what this means. So we see in America the rise of nationalism, which at the moment is being intertwined with Christianity, with Trump's using this to rebuild America. Interestingly, that is what middle America is. The majority of people there come from a Christian background, and the American patriots definitely love America. So he's drawn on that to create a movement. But there's a reason that nationalism raises its head, and it's in direct opposition to communism. If we look back in history, the most famous case of this is Hitler, where he rose with nationalism. It was twisted together with racialism, with his white supremacy, and this was in direct response to communism. He saw the communism looming. The Bolshevism had swept through Russia. It was on its way to Germany, and this is the man-made solution to communism. It's the thing that people can turn to. They can't see past their own nation, and so we see the rise of this in America. Now, people are scared that Trump is like Hitler because there's so many parallels you can draw that he is like Hitler. I don't believe he's a racist. He wants America to succeed. He wants the money of America to succeed, and he's a businessman, and he sees America as a business. So, although a lot of people are absolutely frightened that he's a white supremacist, because white supremacists like the nationalism, the truth is this is the rise of nationalism there. Talk about racialism a little bit. We innately know as mankind now that this is not the solution. So there's still groups. If we look at North Korea, Korean supremacists. You look in America, Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazis, Black Panthers, Black Lives Matter. There's still a lot of racial groups out there, and this is a collective center that people turn to when they start to see powers in the world rising. They understand a little bit about politics, and unifying around your race is something that people seem to think is a good idea. Never works out well. It's not a solution. We all innately know in the core of our being that we're all on this rock together. We're all human, and we don't want wars in the world. We want peace in the world, and we've got to work out how to do that. So, talk a little bit about the nationalism and the racialism. The racialism we all know already. This is something that has come out just in society that we know we're against. Majority of people know that racism's not a thing, and we're all one race and one people, human race. The nationalism is this direct response to communism. So what is communism? If we look at the UN, is it a nationalist movement? No, it's not. It has many nations involved. Most of the nations of the earth, right? So it's not a single nation. It's not about nationalism. Is it racial? No. Races from all over the earth are involved. So it's also not a racist thing. So according to this paragraph here, it's serving communism. It may not outwardly seem like a communist system yet, but in various forms and in different degrees, it is becoming a communist system. The thing is, Middle America are extremely aware of this, and the only solution they have to turn to is nationalism. Communism's anti-God, it's anti-religion, and it is the beast system. That's what it is. It's coming, and America's aware of that. Who are the politicians and worldly wise that are serving the communism? That's the question to see. So we know that nationalist movements, the politicians in that nation are the ones serving it, whereas the communism is this new world order that's talked about a lot in politics. The globalists, as they're called in the truther and conspiracy movement, they're fully aware of who these people are. So I'll go straight to, we'll talk about the worldly wise. Let's talk about the banking system, okay? So we've got an international banking system run by a single family, the Rothschilds, who are trillionaires. So these are some of the high priests. What about the politicians? So what happened in America with Donald Trump is he's clearly pointing out the evils of Hillary Clinton, Obama, well, the Clinton family, the Obama family, the Bush family, tying them into the special interest groups, that the globalists who are running the country and trying to create a world government that's under their rule. So although we need one world, we don't want a totalitarian government that's under communism, okay? So there's, although, you know, it sounds nice, yeah, we all need one world, there's definitely a way to do that and a way not to do that. I'll go deeper into covering the conspiracies and who's running the communism and the problem with nationalism and racialism as we go through, but these are the three core things that we're focusing on as we read through this. Let's do the next paragraph. The theories and policies, so unsound, so pernicious, which deify the state and exalt the nation above mankind, which seek to subordinate the sister race of the world to one single race, which discriminate between the black and the white, and which tolerate the dominance of one privileged class over all others. So, you know, this here talks about racial supremacy, the black and the white, classism, and subordinating sister races, right? And trying to make one race rule over all of them. Obviously, Hitler did that with white supremacy. There's a side of Judaism which does that. The Jewish scriptures, they believe that they're God's chosen people, and that the rest of mankind is there to serve them. So I don't have a problem with all Jewish people. There's plenty of Jewish people who are beautiful people and have beautiful families. But we know there's extremists in every religion, and there's an extreme side to Judaism, which discriminate between the black and the white. Again, this is always on both sides, just like Donald Trump said, on both sides, right? So, yep, we've got white supremacists, we've got Nazis, absolutely terrible ideologies. We also have Black Panthers and Black Lives Matter, and sides that are supported. I think all these groups are breaking down the world and bringing on the communism, right? They're a part of the degeneration of social values. So, and which tolerate the dominance of one privileged class over the others. The multinational corporations and the people that run them, they believe they're of an elite class, and that's not something we need in the world. Mankind's all one, and we all have the same, or should all have the same rights and responsibilities as each other. So these are the dark, the false, and the crooked doctrines for which any man or people who believe in them or acts upon them must sooner or later incur the wrath and chastisement of God. Yeah, so there you go. These things are the dark and false, and God's chastisements coming for them. Movements is the warning sounded by Abdu'l-Baha, newly born and worldwide in their range, which will exert their utmost effort for the advancement of their designs. The movement of the left will acquire great importance. Its influence will spread. So this is interesting. I think a lot of people who have studied these writings think that this here means that the socialism on the left is a great idea. We do need socialism on the bottom end of society to help, give people a hand up who need it. Yet this is a warning. This isn't saying movements is the happiness sounded. Abdu'l-Baha is saying movements is the warning sounded. So the warning sounded by Abdu'l-Baha is that there are movements newly born and worldwide in their range will exert their utmost effort for the advancement of their designs. The movement of the left will acquire great importance. Its influence will spread. When you look at what the movement of the left is, especially in this modern day, it all serves the communism. So the people on the right, which we can see happening in America, right? It's a mirror of the world. The nationalism is a direct response to communism. The people on the right are nationalists. The communism's on the far left. So pretty much anything you're serving, that the way the nationalists call them useful idiots. So when we're serving things that aren't serving God, we know that they're turning to one of these three things. So if we're engaged in something, and with a nationalist, they know what they believe. They know they want their nation to be the greatest, and they're pouring their energies into that. With the racialism, they know what they believe. They claim their race is superior, and that's their foundation for all of their concepts. With the communism, it encompasses all the people who don't know what they believe. So people with random beliefs, people with small beliefs, people with, even people who just want to stay to themselves, they're actually supporting this communism by not standing against it. Which, again, this nationalism stands against it. It's not the correct answer. The correct answer is following the revelation of Baha'u'llah. Yet, it's an answer. It's a man-made answer. This communism, people serve unknowingly, and so the nationalists call them useful idiots. So where it's saying here, it's a warning that the movement of the left will acquire great importance, its influence will spread. This is a it's not a good thing. So it's warning us there. Contrasting with and irreconcilably opposed to these war-engendering, world-convulsing doctrines are the healing, the saving, the pregnant truths proclaimed by Baha'u'llah, the divine organizer and savior of the whole human race. So there's a solution here, which I'm going to get into in this video. We're looking at the problem, and Baha'u'llah's revelation is the solution. So Baha'u'llah offers the solution, which is in complete contrast, and it's opposed to those three things, the communism, the nationalism, and the racism. It's not here to reconcile them. They have to go. They're done. So he's come. He is the divine organizer and savior of the whole human race. Truths which should be regarded as the animating force and the hallmark of his revelation. The world is but one country, and mankind its citizens. This is the foundation of the revelation of Baha'u'llah. We're all one family. Mankind's together. We're all on this rock together. We're all brothers and sisters. And we need to learn how to live together. And the system revealed by Baha'u'llah through Baha'i administration is the way to do it. It's a way to unify the world. I'll continue. Let not a man glory in that he loves his country. Let him rather glory in this, that he loves his kind. So, feeling the glory of the love of your nation is something that people swell with pride about which country they're from. Yet, we have to swell with pride of the whole human race. And again, ye are the fruits of one tree and the leaves of one branch. Bend your minds and wills to the education of the peoples and kindreds of the earth, that happily all mankind may become the upholders of one order and the inhabitants of one city. So this is important here, talking about education. Bend your minds and wills to the education of the peoples and kindreds of the earth. Education and learning what is in this revelation is what will bring mankind's souls together. It's a spiritual education that the world needs. Children from a very young age need to be taught that mankind is one and that we're here to better the world through pure and goodly deeds. Unfortunately, around the world at the moment, you know, in the Middle East, children are taught to hate Jews and hate America. And in other countries, people are taught to hate Muslims or the terrorists. If all children were taught that we're all one and to better the world through pure and goodly deeds from a young age and built upon that, then through education, the world would unify. So ye dwell in one world and have been created through the operation of one will. Beware lest the desires of the flesh and of a corrupt inclination provoke divisions among you. So this right here is the whole reason that the world has divisions, is our desires of the flesh and our corrupt inclinations. So even on the grand level of the whole world, when we look at the problem and the communism that's coming, it's because we are all selfish. So when we're selfish and we're not serving the kingdom of heaven, we're a part of that communism, and then it's rearing its ugly head in the biggest, greatest of ways. We have to beware of our corrupt desires for selfish power over this world and give glory to God. Be ye the fingers of one hand, the members of one body. And yet again, all the saplings of the world have appeared from one tree, and all the drops of the ocean and all beings owe their existence to one being. More on that subject of we all come from one we're all on the same tree. We're all mankind. You know, we talk about family trees. We're all from that single root of, you know, a single-celled amoeba at one point, I guess, with evolution. Although we were always destined to be what we are today, and we were human, I don't believe we were ever a monkey. Yet we're all from that same original seed, and we're all come from the creation of the Creator, the one being. And furthermore, that one indeed is a man who today dedicateth himself to the service of the entire human race. So I think that's talking about maturity there. If we're serving anything other than the entire human race, we're being childish. We're being stubborn little brats. A way to understand what is evil, although it has extremely bad implications in this world and it kills a lot of people, it's not necessarily the existence of an entity as much as the lack of education and the childishness of our lower natures, which through the teachings of Baha'u'llah we can overcome as a species. So it's a lower mind and a higher mind, and we need to apply the ideals that we learn through the revelation of God to the world so that we can be mature. I'm going to talk a little more about what this revelation is. Baha'u'llah is the King of Kings. He is the king. It's a monarchical constitution, or constitutional monarchy. Meaning, the King of Kings came, he wrote the constitution, and he left. He's not looking for any personal gain. This is written for mankind to unify. Yet that constitution has infallible laws, which are laws of God, and inside of that is an administrative order which is elected and has international, national, and local levels of government. And it goes deeper into, I'm not going to go through the whole revelation and how the administration works in this video. This video is to make you all aware that this exists. Look, this website here, Baha'i Reference Library, if I just go through all the books, these books written by Baha'u'llah, these two are the twin pillars of the faith. The Kitab Aqdas, which is the most holy book. This is a book of law and sets a lot of precedents for ruling laws in the future. And the Kitab Khan, which is the book of certitude, which gives a lot of proofs and understanding of all scriptures and revelation, and understanding how to read them. Outside of that, there's no books necessarily that are more important than the other. They're all very important books to read. But these are written by Baha'u'llah. We also have Abdul Baha, who was the first guardian of the faith and really the perfect example of someone following the faith in their personal life. He's the son of Baha'u'llah. And these books here are full of spiritual learning and information. So there's so much to this revelation. And we have writings from Shoghi Effendi as well, which is the guardian of the faith, the last individual guardian who lived before the administrative orders were elected and created. So this is who I've been quoting from. He's the infallible interpreter of the Word of God. And there's a lot of books here to dig into as well. So the other way we can do this, for example, if I just type in America here, America has a glorious destiny ahead of it. It's written about 1,481 times in the books on this website. And America is prophesized and destined to be the first country that God's faith really takes hold in, and to be and to really be the pioneers of this faith in the world, and for what we call entry by troops to happen in first. So this message is for people all over the world, yet I truly believe that the Christian movement in America is going to recognize who Baha'u'llah is, and is going to be the people who really bring this forth into the world. So we're left with two options right now. I'm not going to go into a whole history of communism in this video. It's written about a few times in the writings here. It said 11, and then I think Bolshevism is also written about only once, although it gives two results, but they're both in the same book, on the same pages. So at the moment, we're looking at two options in the world. For those who know what's going on in the world on a geopolitical level, understand what the EU is becoming, especially now Trump's in. They've decided they're going to make a super military. They are the rebuilding of Rome, created by the Treatise of Rome under the Pope's guidance. And America is getting these globalists out. The globalists are running the EU, so they're pushing all the forced immigration. They're taking control. The British recognise what's going on. They want it out, but I don't think they're going to get out. And they're moving to create a global communist regime. When I look even deeper, if people know the history of the British royal family, I believe that one of the British royal family are going to usurp power, like Constantine did in Rome. And they're going to, this is just me trying to project the future from all of the information that I gather. They're going to, if I was a self-aggrandized prince being crowned king, I would be crowned by the Vatican so that I could unify the powers of the Catholic world and the British Empire. And it seems that they're set up to be able to claim to be the Mahdi, who's the promised one of Islam. Understanding the Baha'i faith, we know that that Mahdi has already come in the Bab. So there's writings written by the Bab on this website. Selections from the writings of the Bab. He was the forerunner to Baha'u'llah, as John the Baptist was to Jesus. So they're the twin sons. So when we know that the Mahdi has already come, yet we know that in Revelation this beast system's coming in the Bible, and we know that there's false prophet, and we know there's an antichrist. And when we look at what the royal family and how they claim kingship over the world, they basically claim to be Baha'u'llah. They've been forcing through inbreeding to be the ones who rule over the earth. They believe it's their destiny to rule over the earth from the temple in Jerusalem. They have the stone of scone in the throne when they are coronated, which is the stone they say that Jacob fell asleep on and dreamt of Jacob's ladder. And they use that as the proof that they're the ones who were promised by God to inherit the world when God said that to Abraham. So their claim is to rule the world, and that's what they're looking for. So God willing, that's not what's going to happen, and they turn to Baha'u'llah and they can mitigate what is about to happen in the world. Yet from everything, most of the people on the internet have access. It's not a secret. If you've done any research into conspiracies, and you don't get trapped in the aliens and flat earth side of it, but if you just look at the power players in the world, the Vatican, the British royal family, the Saudi royal family, the deep state in America, the Federal Reserve, the Rothschild bankers, what George Soros is doing, how the EU was built, how the UN was created. And so this is all coming to a crescendo at some point. I'm not sure if they're aware of where it's going, yet it looks like that is what's coming. And we're also warned of this mark of the beast, which we see coming in through technology. We can already just wave our phone over the computers for payments, and microchip technologies, they're as small as a grain of sand these days, all of that stuff. So look, this is coming, and of course it becomes totalitarian, and it becomes over-regulated if not put in check. And the only thing that can put it in check is this revelation of Baha'u'llah. It gives power to the people, and it's not something that can be corrupted. No one can take power over this system. So, my final words on this. This has nothing to do with me. I'm not here asking for money. I'm not here asking for allegiance to me. I'm just a guy from Australia, okay? This is about the people who see this video, opening this website here, the Baha'i Reference Library, and digging into this revelation from God and seeing it for what it is. It is the thing that's going to bring this world into unity. It is the return of Christ. It is what we need for the world, and it's the only way that we can escape the Bolshevism that's coming, the communism that's coming, and that's the solution to the Illuminati problem. So, God willing, this helps a lot of people that otherwise wouldn't have had any idea that Baha'u'llah had come, and God is the all-glorious. Okay, we're going to look at another excerpt from the book The World Order of Baha'u'llah, written by Shoyi Effendi. This one's World Unity, the goal. Unification of the whole of mankind is the hallmark of the stage which human society is now approaching. The world is a global community. It is what it is. We've got there. So, a few hundred years ago, maps still weren't drawn, and countries didn't know other countries existed. So now we do. Unity of family, tribe, of city, state, and nation have been successfully attempted and fully established. World unity is the goal towards which a harassed humanity is striving. So, progressively throughout human evolution, we achieve tribe, we achieve family. I'm sure at some point humans were quite just animal natured, and we didn't even see past our pure self. Family is an intellectual pursuit, really a spiritual pursuit, but we have to apply our intellectual faculty to creating and maintaining families. Same for a tribe, which we've done for thousands of years, both those things. The city-state has been achieved, and so has the nation. These weren't always things. Mankind has achieved these things, and we're now looking at the unification of the world. That's what the goal is. So nation building's come to an end. The anarchy inherent in state sovereignty is moving towards its climax. A world growing to maturity must abandon this fetish, recognize the oneness and wholeness of human relationships, and establish once for all the machinery that can best incarnate this fundamental principle of its life. So we know that we can have a nation, but it's really not enough. We're being selfish to not have the whole world as a global family. And so we need to abandon the fetish of nationalism. We have to go past it. Nationalism is not enough. It's just not enough. We see over and over what's happening in America right now, the rise of nationalism. We saw it go really bad with Hitler. Although nationalism is that man-made response to communism. You see communism coming, where else to turn but to build your nation? It's not enough anymore. We need to build a world that doesn't allow communism in it, that doesn't allow nationalism in it, that doesn't allow racism, racialism. So, a new life, Baha'u'llah proclaims, is in this age stirring within all the people of the earth, and yet none have discovered its cause or perceived its motive. And now you've listened to this video, you may have discovered its cause. Its cause is Baha'u'llah, the revelation. O ye children of men, he thus addresses his generation. The fundamental purpose animating the faith of God and his religion is to safeguard the interests and promote the unity of the human race. This is the straight path, the fixed and immovable foundation. If God's our Father, and Father to all humanity, then of course, as the Father, he wishes to safeguard our interests, all of us, and promote unity within his family. No one wants their family to split and divide. This is the straight path, the fixed and immovable foundation. It's at the core of the faith of God. Whatsoever is raised on this foundation, the changes and chances of the world can never impair its strength, nor will the revolution of countless centuries undermine its structure. It is the strongest collective center of unity that we can fathom as mankind. The well-being of mankind, he declares, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. We want well-being for us as a species, we need to establish unity as a species. So powerful is the light of unity, is his further testimony, that it can illuminate the whole earth. The one true God, he who knoweth all things, himself testifieth to the truth of these words. The light of unity. Only through unity. No more division, no more conquest, no more divide and conquer. Unity. And there's only one way we can truly unify, and that's under God and with God's teachings and God's standards at the center of that unification. This goal excelleth every other goal. And this aspiration is the monarch of all aspirations. It's the kingly ideal. The King of Kings has brought this ideal for us. He who is your Lord, the All-Merciful, he moreover has written, cherisheth in his heart the desire of beholding the entire human race as one soul and one body. Haste ye to win your share of God's grace and mercy in this day that eclipseth all other created days. We are in the greatest moment in human history. the kings of old couldn't dream of having what we have at our fingertips. Even the poorest people on the earth have access to mobile phones and the internet now. The technologies that we have, all those things, we're in the greatest day. We just have to get over this final hurdle. The unity of the human race, as envisaged by Baha'u'llah, implies the establishment of a world commonwealth in which all nations, races, creeds and classes are closely and permanently united, and in which the autonomy of its state members and the personal freedom and initiative of the individuals that compose them are definitely and completely safeguarded. So this world commonwealth which we need is very different to what the UN is at the moment, where personal freedoms are not truly safeguarded. You can't get together a bunch of people who fit that description of the high priests of the three idol gods and claim that it's a good unifying system. Doesn't work. This commonwealth must, as far as we can visualize it, consist of a world legislature whose members will, as the trustees of the whole of mankind, ultimately control the entire resources of all the component nations, and will enact such laws as should be required to regulate the life, satisfy the needs, and adjust the relationships of all races and peoples. I can see how this sounds frightening to a lot of people, especially the conspiracy-minded people who see this as giving too much power to the state as a single overreaching centralized power. This is based upon God's standards, where individual nations will still exist, as we saw up here, completely safeguarded. Personal freedoms are safeguarded. The autonomy of its state members. So although we're unified, and there has to be some world-embracing laws that are put in place that everybody has to follow, it's not a totalitarian dictatorial government. That's not what we're looking at here. Where is it up to? Right here. A world executive backed by an international force will carry out the decisions arrived at and apply the laws enacted by this world legislature, and will safeguard the organic unity of the whole Commonwealth. A world tribunal will adjudicate and deliver its compulsory and final verdict in all and any disputes that may arise between the various elements constituting this universal system. So, again, it's quite hard to see when you have the blinders of conspiracy on, where you can imagine if this was under a dictatorial rule of a single leader, this becomes a problem. If someone overtakes power, it's, clearly we don't want a Roman Caesar controlling the world. That's why we have the rules written by Baha'u'llah and the Kitab Aqdas, which create precedents for elected governing bodies to then rule upon. I'll keep reading. A mechanism of world intercommunication will be devised, embracing the whole planet, freed from national hindrances and restrictions. Well, this is the internet. It's clearly predicting the internet's creation, and although some countries still do hinder and restrict access for some people, in general, the internet's available in every country. And people have their right to free speech. At the moment, we're facing some problems because of the socialism. They're trying to control the internet, but they can't win. Okay. So, and functioning with marvelous swiftness and perfect regularity. A world metropolis will act as a nerve center of a world civilization, the focus towards which the unifying forces of life will converge and from which its energizing influences will radiate. This is Israel. Israel will be the center of the world. It'll be the nerve center of the world. The Baha'i World Center is already there. I'll put a picture there in the editing. And Israel, from the beginning, has been ordained by God to be the world center. Mount Carmel is the mountain in the Bible that God showed the people that he was powerful and Baal had no power. Baal being the evil god of the Bible, the god of human sacrifice, which is what these three idol gods are, that satanic final version of. So Mount Carmel is the mountain where God finally destroys the idol gods. A world language will either be invented or chosen from among the existing languages and will be taught in the schools of all the federated nations as an auxiliary to their mother tongue. So this looks like it's going to be English. Some big change may happen, but from everything I can see at the moment, computers have English keyboards. Countries all over the world already try to learn English as a second language to communicate. So it's not a systematic approach yet globally to teach it as a auxiliary language, yet it seems like it's going to be English. Yet also we want to keep the mother tongues of nations. This faith is not about destroying culture. It's not an attack on culture, and unity and diversity is the call. So we're not trying to extinguish mother tongues. People should retain culture. We don't want it just a soup of grey in the world. A world script, a world literature. A uniform, universal system of currency, of weights and measures will simplify and facilitate intercourse and understanding among the nations and races of mankind. It's quite straightforward, right? If we all use the same script, which we already are really with the internet because of keyboards, and computers, keyboards. A world literature, a uniform and universal system of currency. Yeah, a single dollar for the world is a great idea if it's not owned by a single person. Remember, there's teaching in the Baha'i faith that we got to get rid of extremes of wealth and poverty. So a lot of this stuff, when you're reading it, you have to realize that it's in that framework. If you put this stuff in the framework where there's trillionaires and there's people with nothing, then it becomes a bad problem. But put in the framework of there's no extremes of wealth and poverty, it becomes a better thing. So a universal system of currency is good if it's not owned by one family. Like, the Rothschilds seem to be trillionaires, and that's a lot of power in one person's hands. So, of weights and measures, there's two vying for it at the moment, metric and imperial. I think most of the world's running on metric now. Sorry, America. Metric it's going to be, it seems. So we'll simplify and facilitate intercourse and understanding among the nations and races of mankind. In such a world society, science and religion, the two most potent forces in human life, will be reconciled, will cooperate, and will harmoniously develop. So science and religion need to go hand in hand. This faith is for the betterment of the world, and we can apply science to that. Yet we can also use sciences for bad things, right? Science is just the manipulation of this material world and has no moral or ethical foundation to it. So we can literally apply it to anything we want. Yet we need to have a balance of science and religion. We can't believe in superstition. We can't believe, oh, you said the wrong thing, therefore God's gonna zap you with lightning. That'd be superstition, right? You said the wrong thing. We know through God's revelation what the truth is if we apply the science and reason of what truth is to the betterment of humankind. So if that's what we're applying science to, then that will line up with the truths that we're taught in this revelation. If you're applying science to a selfish endeavor or self-knowing, you'll find it may contradict what we need for the world. So we can see how the two can be contradictory, or they can work together. Another interesting one that I've thought about recently is the concept of when is a human a human? Abortion's a big topic that gets talked about. In the Baha'i faith, we're absolutely pro-life. God likes life. We're not to murder. And there's a big debate about this. And plain and simple, if we believe in science, regardless of religion, regardless of if you want to believe in a soul, if we believe in science, then what marks human life or any life, what marks the existence of life in this physical world, and it's a unique DNA strand. And so when is a baby a human? When, like, after conception, as soon as there's the first split, which is usually within a couple of hours, I think it's 8, of fertilization of the egg. And as soon as there's a unique DNA strand, that's life. So science backing up religion. Religion says don't have an abortion, there's a soul there and it's a baby and we don't want to kill it. And science is telling us that's life exists. You're taking away that life if you abort. Anyway, I'll continue. The press will, under such a system, while giving full scope to the expression of the diversified views and convictions of mankind, cease to be mischievously manipulated by vested interests, whether private or public, and will be liberated from the influence of contending governments and people. Well, that's an interesting one, written so long ago, when it's one of the things we're facing right now. Donald Trump's very quick to call out what he's termed fake news, which is the press clearly swayed by the left, deep left, controlled by interests that will do anything they can to discriminate against him. He's a Christian nationalist, and they're all for the communism. Neither side are right, and at some point that press would tip to the other side, where it's then hardcore nationalist and not looking at other people's points of views. We know that the nationalism, the racism, and the communism are all at war with each other. They're the three idol gods. So, but we need a press that's not running that way. Anyway, fake news is a thing. I'll go on. The economic resources of the world will be organized. Its sources of raw materials will be tapped and fully utilized. Its markets will be coordinated and developed, and the distribution of its products will be equitably regulated. So, a couple of things there. Economic resources of the world will be organized. So, we need to learn to manage this planet. Now, some people might get scared of that and think, oh, they're all about just like raping the earth for its raw materials. But when we look at the overextending foundation of these principles, that can only be done in a way that is for the long-term survival of mankind on this planet. So we're not looking at exploiting those resources in a way that are going to damage the planet and make it unlivable. The correct way is to exploit them in a way where life's going to go on for an infinite amount, or whatever, you know, the foreseen future. I'll continue. National rivalries, hatreds, and intrigues will cease, and racial animosity and prejudice will be replaced by racial amity, understanding, and cooperation. Well, we've covered that a lot here, right? The racialism has to go. We're all one people. There's definitely a difference between the forced breeding out of a race and the natural occurrence of mankind being together, and sooner or later races becoming less prevalent and strong where we all mix together, right? There is a problem that we see at the moment in European countries being forced to integrate mass refugee programs, and basically being told that they're racist if they don't want migrants. This, if we put this in a smaller scale, I'm sure that no one on the other side of this camera would suggest that we should go to Vanuatu and force the locals there to be bred out of existence because otherwise they're being racist. Of course we want to keep cultures and we want to keep the diversity in the world, yet we don't want to have them as barriers. So there's some depth to the racial things that are going on there. As a white man, it's sad to see Europe falling, and it's the past. It's forced upon us by this communist system, but we can't go back anyway, right? So as sad as it is to see, because I know that the forced version of it's wrong. At the same time, this is what the world has to go through to get to the point where we're unified. I'm not condoning the forcing of it, yet I've detached from it in a way of understanding that the past is the past. The causes of religious strife will be permanently removed, economic barriers and restrictions will be completely abolished, and the inordinate distinction between classes will be obliterated. Yeah, so we got to get rid of all the classism. We're all humans, and it's about education, which is the thing that can free us from wherever we're at, right? So often the places with the people who are poor and destitute, it's education that can set them free. And not just learning mathematics and science, but an education in spirit to free them from depression. The enormous energy dissipated and wasted on war, whether economic or political, will be consecrated to such ends as will extend the range of human inventions and technical development. Yeah, once we all stop thinking about who we got to defend our borders from and who's a threat, we can pour so much more energy into other things. So to the increase of the productivity of mankind, to the extermination of disease, to the extension of scientific research, to the raising of the standard of physical health, to the sharpening and refinement of the human brain, to the exploitation of the unused and unsuspected resources of the planet. Well, that'll be interesting to see what unused and unsuspected resources there are. To the prolongation of human life, and to the furtherance of any other agency that can stimulate the intellectual, the moral, and spiritual life of the entire human race. So it seems like there's a glorious future ahead of mankind. We just got to get there. A federal system ruling the whole earth and exercising unchallengeable authority over its unimaginably vast resources, blending and embodying the ideals of both the East and the West, liberated from the curse of war and its miseries, and bent on the exploitation of all the available sources of energy on the surface of the planet. Again, that can sound terrible if it's under a totalitarian dictatorship, but if you study the Baha'i systems of governance and elections and how the world needs to work, it's not something which someone can overthrow as an individual and claim power over. It is the kingdom of heaven, and it's a system which is incorruptible. A system in which the force is made the servant of justice, whose life is sustained by its universal recognition of one God and by its allegiance to one common revelation. Such is the goal towards which humanity, impelled by the unifying forces of life, is moving. So this sentence here, I find very interesting. I speak to people who studied a little bit of what's in these writings, and they tell me that it's not about everybody has to recognize God. And, you know, everyone can live on the planet without recognizing God, and only if you want to or you don't want to. But that's not what the revelation of God says. What it says is that a system of force is made the servant of justice, and whose life is sustained by its universal recognition of one God and by its allegiance to one common revelation. That is the revelation of Baha'u'llah. It's saying that everybody will turn to God on the planet. It will be a world-embracing faith. It's not, look, I'm not saying we have to not like someone who's not found this revelation and believed in it, understood it to some degree, studied it. You know, it's the age-old problem of religion, where we believe in God and we love everybody, even if they're the worst communists in the world. We pray for God to bring them into the light. We love them, yet at the same time we need justice for those who go against humanity. So those high priests that serve the idol gods need to be brought to justice. It's not just that we love everyone so we're not going to do anything. We love everybody, yet if somebody does something that's unjust, they need to be brought to justice. Of course, there's mercy and kindness and compassion, depending, you know, on the lower level of society. We need some socialization. We need to look after people who need a hand up. Yet, the foundation is love and justice. Okay, so one of the great events, affirms Abdul Baha, which is to occur in the day of the manifestation of that incomparable branch, is the hoisting of the standard of God among all nations. All nations are going to turn towards the standards of God through this revelation. By this is meant, here we go, that all nations and kindreds will be gathered together under the shadow of this divine banner. All nations and kindreds, not some, not majority, all, everybody. This is a world faith for everybody, and everybody will enter it at some point. This is what's been prophesied since the beginning of time. Okay, so which is no other than the lordly branch itself, and will become a single nation. Religious and sectarian antagonism, the hostility of races and peoples, and differences among nations will be eliminated. All men will adhere to one religion, will have one common faith, will be blended into one race and become a single people. This sentence here puts fear into people. The Illuminati agenda, one world religion, everybody under, it's a counterfeit version of the Baha'i faith. It's the satanic, people's satanic fancies, their selfishness. Other people have copied what's in here, and they want the glory for themselves and not for God. And then it becomes a problem to join a one world religion that's advocating homosexuality and all those things on the left which are anti-family. Destruction of the family unit, anti-God. Yeah, that's a problem. Anyway, all will dwell in one common fatherland, which is the planet itself. Now, in the world of being, he has moreover explained, the hand of divine power hath firmly laid the foundations of this all-highest bounty and this wondrous gift. Whatsoever is latent in the innermost of this holy cycle shall gradually appear and be made manifest. So, it's all going to happen. We've been promised it's all going to happen, but that doesn't mean we can just sit down and relax and wait for it to happen. We still have to choose. We have free will, and we can choose whether I'll do a whole nother video on the next world, yet we can choose whether our soul is something that we keep for eternity and go close to the light, and we're bathed in the effulgent glory of his countenance, or we're so far away from him that we're close to nothingness. There's an option there. We have to choose it. For now is but the beginning of its growth and the dayspring of the revelation of its signs. Ere the close of the century and of this age, it shall be made clear and evident how wondrous was that springtide and how heavenly was that gift. So it then goes on to reference Bible stories and other things. So I'm going to stop here for this one. So this is the introduction to The Promised Days Come, written by Shogi Effendi. This is the revised edition, but it was written in, dated March 41, according to Wikipedia. So, let's read through it and then we'll break it down. The promised day has come. It's quite straightforward. The day that's been promised. From time immemorial, by every prophet, every manifestation, they all talked about the coming of a person who would save the world, basically, right? Our Savior, our Messiah. The end of that prophetic cycle is Baha'u'llah, a rebirth of the world, the end of the old world system. So, this was addressed to, we'll go to Wikipedia to give you the reference, all the Baha'is in the West. A tempest, unprecedented in its violence, unpredictable in its course, catastrophic in its immediate effects. A tempest is a storm, a very windy storm. So this is the storm of God, a tempest, unprecedented in its violence. Never before has the world seen such a violent, unpredictable, catastrophic time. We're coming to the end of the old system, and a new system has to be put in its place. So, catastrophic in its immediate effects, unimaginably glorious in its ultimate consequences. So, although we're in the Battle of Armageddon, and we may go through a very hard time in the very near future, on the other side is an unimaginably glorious future. Yet, at present, it's sweeping the face of the earth. This tempest. Its driving power is remorselessly gaining in range and momentum. It's getting bigger and stronger. Its cleansing force, however much undetected, is increasing with every passing day. Very interesting statement here. This tempest is basically like Noah's flood. God said he'd never flood the earth again with water, yet this is a modern spiritual flood, and it is getting rid of all of the movements that have been created that are not in God's name. So, and that skew God's teachings and use the religions of God for individuals' own gains. So humanity is gripped in the clutches of its devastating power. We can't escape it. There seems to be nowhere to go except for God. And if we don't go to God, then we stay in the flood, right? Is smitten by the evidences of its resistless fury. It can neither perceive its origin nor probe its significance. So, if you've never heard of Baha'u'llah and you don't know the revelation of Baha'u'llah's New World Order, which is very different to the globalist world order, which is a counterfeit system, you're unable to perceive why this is happening. Can't perceive its origin, nor probe its significance, nor discern its outcome. People find it very hard to see where it's all going. Bewildered, agonized, and helpless, it watches this great and mighty wind of God invading the remotest and fairest regions of the earth. This is communism. This is the communism that basically destroys everything and gives it to the state. And it uses people to get itself in place, and then it kills what the nationalists call useful idiots. I'll continue reading. It's rocking its foundations, deranging its equilibrium, sundering its nations, disrupting the homes of its people. So let's go here, right? Sundering its nations and disrupting the homes of its people. The agenda, the way that they're bringing in the communism, using the liberal media and pushing homosexuality, which breaks down the family unit, looking towards destroying national sovereignty and trying to amalgamate all nations into their New World Order, which is not the world order that Baha'u'llah has described. It's something very different that's being created, and the communism's doing it. It's wasting its cities, driving into exile kings, pulling down its bulwarks, uprooting its institutions, dimming its light, and harrowing up the souls of its inhabitants. Now, you know, there's two ways of trying to explain this. One is trying to hold on to the past and saying, the poor institutions that are getting uprooted by this communism, slowly overtaking the world, the political correctness. No one's allowed to have any firm belief in what they've learnt to believe. If you're a nationalist, if you're a racialist, if you're like the Vatican, the Pope's bowing down to political correctness. It's not that I'm not saying that you should be allowed to hold on to those things. Nationalism's wrong. Racialism's wrong. Yet, this is God's flood that's tearing these things down because they are not what God wanted. And it's not put upon the people of God to go to war in a holy war and destroy these things. It's up to God to do it. What is up to the people is to turn to God to escape the communism. So, and harrowing up the souls of its inhabitants. So people on an individual level, depressed, the souls are in torment and anguish. Godliness is at a low. And you can see people who follow this far left ideals, they're eating themselves alive. It looks like they're possessed often. It's destroying people's very souls because they don't know where to turn. They've been so downtrodden mentally. It's anti-God and it's anti-human spirit, this communism. The time for the destruction of the world and its people, Baha'u'llah's prophetic pen has proclaimed, hath arrived. This is what I was just talking about. So this is the flood. It's destroying the world, not literally as in exploding the earth into 1,000 pieces, but exploding the human world and our power structures and destroying those three idol gods, which we'll get into after, and the people who serve them. So Baha'u'llah's prophetic pen has proclaimed, the time for the destruction of the world and its people hath arrived. The hour is approaching, he specifically affirms, when the most great convulsion will have appeared. So he's saying, look, it's close, we're almost there. We are in the battle of Armageddon, and soon it will be over. When the most great convulsion will have appeared. Not a small convulsion. The world is facing a major event. There's a moment, there's an appointed hour. I'll continue. The promised day has come. The day when tormenting trials will have surged above your heads and beneath your feet, saying, taste ye what your hands have wrought. We're in that day right now. Wars persist over communism, nationalism, racialism in one degree or another. So, and we are tasting what our hands have wrought. It's due to these man-made concepts that we're all killing each other. Soon shall the blast of chastisement beat upon you, and the dust of hell enshroud you. Yeah, God's wrath is following us, and these things will be the end of a lot of people, and it's quite a frightening thing to consider where we're at in the world at the moment. So, and again, and when the appointed hour is come, there shall suddenly appear that which shall cause the limbs of mankind to quake. So what is that? It's hidden. Possibly a major war. I think we're headed to World War III. Pretty sure a lot of the world's thinking that we're facing that right now. Nuclear powers. Trump's got his fingers on the button. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, with the communist regime threatening, and you know, we have some other superpowers involved as well, but it seems that this may be a trigger to World War III. The day is approaching when its civilization's flames will devour the cities, when the tongue of grandeur will proclaim, the kingdom is God's, the Almighty, the All-Praised. So this is civilization, right? Our very civilization, which is built on these three idol gods. The day is approaching when its flame will devour the cities. That, you know, talking about flames sounds like bombs to me. When the tongue of grandeur will proclaim, the kingdom is God's, the Almighty, the All-Praised. The day will soon come. He, referring to the foolish ones of the earth, has written, whereon they will cry out for help and receive no answer. He's saying soon, very soon, we're out of time. Everybody thinks they're doing good, everybody's signaling their virtue, but it's all in their own self-interest to say, look how good I am. They're not giving glory to God, and they're not turning to God. And at some point, people will cry out and say, but I'm a good person. Yet because of their lack of serving the cause of God, there'll be no answer. The day is approaching, he moreover has prophesied, when the wrathful anger of the Almighty will have taken hold of them. He verily is the omnipotent, the all-subduing, the most powerful. Again, This day is approaching. He's not saying we can negate it. It's coming. There's nothing we can do about it. It's coming. And when the wrathful anger of the Almighty will have taken hold of them. So he's going to punish the world for its misdoings. He verily is the omnipotent, the all-subduing, the most powerful. He shall cleanse the earth from the defilement of their corruption. The earth is being cleansed right now. Powers are falling. There's still a fair few on top that are vying for position. They're not going to give up. The people in charge are not going to give up their power and authority. They're international criminals, and they need to be held to account for their misdoings. So he shall cleanse the earth from the defilement of their corruption, and shall give it for an heritage unto such of his servants as are nigh unto him. The world will come under the rule of God through this administration, this Baha'i administration. As to those who deny him, who is the sublime gate of God, the Bab, for his part, has affirmed in the Qaumi Asma, sorry for my pronunciation, I'm a native English speaker. For them we have prepared, as justly decreed by God, a sore torment. So he's saying that for everybody that denies the Bab and after him Baha'u'llah, there's no escape. This is the return of Christ. O people of the earth, I swear by your Lord, you shall act as former generations have acted. Warn ye then yourselves of the terrible, the most grievous vengeance of God. Very interesting here. Ye shall act as former generations have acted. What's he saying here? Every generation of the past have prayed for the coming of the next manifestation. Take the Jewish people, for instance, for so long praying for the return of their Messiah, and when Jesus came, they denied him. They said, you're not our king, you ride a donkey, you're a carpenter, etc., etc. This is what it's talking about here. You shall act as former generations have acted. People are going to deny this cause. People are going to deny Baha'u'llah due to their own superstitions and their own misinterpretations of books. For some reason, they're not looking at the end of what this revelation is about, which is the love of humanity. They're looking at reasons to win the argument, not consulting on what the true answer to all this riddle is. So warn ye then yourselves of the terrible, the most grievous vengeance of God. For God is verily potent over all things. And again by my glory, I will make the infidels to taste, with the hands of my power, retributions unknown of anyone except me. We don't know what those retributions are, but it sounds like something I don't want put upon me. Let's not be infidels. So, and will waft over the faithful those musk-scented breaths which I have nursed in the midmost heart of my throne. That sounds like what I want. So this is about love of humanity. This is about family. This is about the betterment of the world through pure and goodly deeds. This is what this revelation's about. Dear friends, the powerful operations of this titanic upheaval are comprehensible to none except such as have recognized the claims of both Baha'u'llah and the Bab. Their followers know full well whence it comes and what it will ultimately lead to. So, through recognizing Baha'u'llah and his forerunner, the Bab, who is as John the Baptist was to Jesus, the Bab came before Baha'u'llah. Through recognition of this revelation of God, you can then have a greater understanding of what's happening in the world and where it's heading. A lot of people think that we're going to see this battle of Armageddon come to an end when Jesus flies down on a cloud, like monkey magic or something, and you know, with a sword in his hand, and he's going to battle the devil in some ultimate end of the world, epic, eternal struggle. It doesn't go down like that. This revelation has already come. As a thief in the night, Behold came and went, and revealed the system for mankind to unify. We now have a counterfeit system. Due to mankind's selfish nature, they've thought that they can do this without God. People have said, I have the answer. I don't need God's answer, I have the answer. And all these man-made systems are creating a beast system, which do not have the love of mankind at the heart of it. They have the selfish nature at the heart of it and virtue signaling, to say, I'm the one who had the answer, rather than giving glory to God. When you understand that that's what's happening in the world, and at some point that ends, and we do turn to Baha'u'llah, but probably, not probably, only after some great catastrophes and, unfortunately, a lot of death in this world. I'll continue reading. Their followers know full well whence it comes and what it will ultimately lead to. Though ignorant of how far it will reach, they clearly recognize its genesis, are aware of its direction, acknowledge its necessity, observe confidently its mysterious process, ardently pray for the mitigation of its severity. I'll stop there. So, we know that it's going to happen, right? So when we're not sure of exactly how far it reaches, no one knows the time in the day. No one knows the time in the day that we gain a world-governing super state under God. Yet it's revealed how to do it already. We recognize its genesis. If you recognize Baha'u'llah, you're aware of its direction. We know that what's going on in the world is heading towards a unification process. We acknowledge the necessity. Unfortunately, the wars in the world have to be happening to crumble and roll out the old world order. It has to naturally roll out as the new one comes in. We observe confidently that its mysterious process and ardently pray for the mitigation of its severity. So, although it has to happen, God willing, souls turn to this cause. And the severity of what the world has to go through for them to turn to this cause can be mitigated. We intelligently labor to assuage its fury and anticipate with undimmed vision the consummation of the fears and the hopes it must necessarily engender. So this is what I'm trying to do with this video. Intelligently labor to assuage its fury and anticipate with undimmed vision the consummation of the fears and hopes it must necessarily engender. So we can pray and we can labor. Now, you know, making a video is the least of it. Clearly there's people with much greater capacity out there than me making a little YouTube video. There's things that people can do to mitigate the severity of what's coming. Yet we have to do it in the name of Baha'u'llah. We have to do it with faith, and we have to do it with absolute surety that we're serving God and not serving our own selfish desires and want for any sort of power over this world.